Happy holidays and welcome to What's My House Worth, everyone's favorite real estate show on the Needham channel. My name is Rob Ticktin. I own Tick Development. We do residential development right here in Needham. I also own Encompass Residential, providing real estate brokerage for longtime homeowners.
And I'm Ryan McDonnell. I own Hawthorne Real Estate. We are builders and brokers in Needham here as well.
And today we're going to be discussing November's data, and November looking like a pretty good month, as have the last few months. Would you say, Ryan?
Not bad at all, Rob.
November 2012 had 29 sales, a pretty good number. What else did you see as we look over the macro data?
I mean, up from 17 in October. I mean, it's really a big jump for November. The average list price at $853 with an average sales price, Rob, of $837. So pretty healthy. And then holding true with that magic 98% of list is our sales percentage.
Right. Also holding true would be the low 300s for average sales price per square foot. Days on market, that's a good sign. Flushing through some inventory that's been on for a little while. We'll drill into some of those homes in just a little bit. But the biggest number that jumps out to me on the bottom of that slide is the number of homes that sold in November of 2011, just 9. So we are way up year over year from the previous November.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely.
So we jump now to the graph, which shows how the last few months have looked in 2012 leading up to the November number. And we see it seems to be kind of curling back up a little bit coming off the summer months.
Right, and I mean, I think if maybe we had taken a closer look at what was still sort of in the under agreement bucket last month, but the 29 sales was certainly a shock. I mean,
I think it caught both of us by surprise.
Right. I mean, I almost fell out of my chair.
I know, I saw that, but luckily I was there to save you, and that enabled us to talk about the next graph, which would be the November data, and see how the Novembers have kind of gone along over the last few years. And once again, I feel like a broken record as we talk about this over the last few months, but it's a pretty good number as far as how it stacks up to previous years.
Right. It's almost like, you know, how we were talking about this past June and how much that jumped off the page. This November is doing the same thing. And really, I mean, we're still in a period of historically low interest rates, and that I have to believe that's a big factor here as to what's driving people back to the market. And the economy overall is definitely on the mend. I mean, so things are strong. Needham has been very stable, but all in all, this is very positive.
Right, and inventory has been staying level as well, which is a good sign. You're not having things start to build up, or all of a sudden it's becoming a buyer's market. It still continues to be a seller's market right here in town. So this past November, the best one in Needham, or at least tied as being the best one over the course of the past 5 years. With the macro data in mind, let's do what we always do, which is look at each of the sales over the course of last month. We start with the lowest number and work our way up. And this past month, the lowest number was 86 Lincoln Street, sold for $412,500.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at this on paper, I mean, obviously it needs some work. The listing discloses that it's being sold as is, which always means that, you know, you're probably in for a little bit of work. But what the listing doesn't really tell you is this is directly across the street from the hospital.
That's right, yep.
So, and that's a factor. You know, there's a lot of comings and goings. Although the emergency room entrance is no longer there, it's still, you know, a presence. But, you know, at the same time, you're talking about a big lot and a house for $412,000, and that's, you know, I think that's a good deal.
Yeah, I saw the inside of this house, and it needed a lot of work, but it was a good situation for the sellers in the sense that they put it on the market months before they were going to be done with the construction of their new home. So time was on their side. So that can be a good scenario if you price it right. And so they were able to let it be on the market for 3 to 4 months, and it didn't really work against them. But when the time came for them to sell it, they brought it down a little bit, and ultimately the house sold for what seemed to be the right number, which was $412,500.
Yep.
Next up after 86 Lincoln Street is 1699 Great Plain Ave. This house sold for $417,050. A smaller house, Ryan. What else jumps out about that house?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-bedroom, and there's not a lot of single families out there that are just 2-bedroom homes. I mean, we saw one on Donna a few months ago, and then here's another one. But 5 days on market, I mean, the angle that was put forth was a condo alternative, and may just be what it is. I mean, people who are in the market for condos aren't necessarily looking for 4 or 5 bedrooms, and it gives you the single family living with, you know, without a lot to take care of.
That house sold for well below assessed value. It also starts a string for us of what you could call condo alternatives.
Yeah.
After the Great Plain one is 25 Mark Tree. Now this was a house that was on a really small lot, but kind of a similar situation that somebody could buy a house like this as opposed to a condo.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that drives people to condominiums is you don't have a big yard to take care of. You don't have a lot of outdoor responsibilities. This is another one. I mean, it's another 2-bedroom, which is also strange. But like Rob said, 5,200 square foot lot, which is tiny for Needham, but sold in 4 days. So there you go. Maybe there are some people looking to downsize out there this month.
Right, and this house set pretty far back from the road,
right.
So a bigger front yard than a backyard, also an easement on the driveway.
Yeah,
so
it takes Mark Tree a little bit off the table a little bit because it is set back like that. But still, we're talking about house on Great Plain, house on Mark Tree, and then our last condo alternative is a house on Webster.
That's right, 19 Webster Street is the one that you're talking about. This is a house that sold for $450,000, and once again, this was a 3-bed,
right?
Not a 21 bath. But actually just two baths.
The house was generally speaking all baths. It was really unique.
I love the way they squeezed.
That's part of the
21 baths
surprises galore.
15 surprise! There's 21 baths and 1,500 square feet.
Yep.
But this house, trying to bring it back a little bit, this house on the market for 173 days, so it was on for a while.
Right. Well, it's a unique small market of people who are looking for that many bathrooms.
That's true. Good point. Also, we should note that this house sold for $450,000 in 2006. The very same house sold for $470,000. So over the course of the last 6 years, it actually lost value by $20,000. That does it for our condo alternative section of the show. We're going to start to get a little bit bigger and move over to 1490 Great Plain Avenue. Originally listed for $499, sold for $488.5. Something about this listing jumped out at you. What was that, Ryan?
First, it's on a large lot. It's over 26,000 square foot lot, which is, by all accounts, really, really roomy.
Yeah, in conservation land behind it.
Right. And then what I noticed was some in the listing remarks was a comment by a listing agent that that the house faces northeast for Vastu, and that, for those of you who are unaware, referring to an element of Hindu architecture. And what to me is unique is that you don't generally see references to one ethnic group or another in a listing sheet. I mean, it's interesting that you note that. I mean, there are probably several homes in Needham that face northeast, and not all of them make reference to this. So this one did, and you wonder if that originated from the seller or listing agent or a combination of both. And I also wonder is if it played a part in helping the sale get done.
That's right. My first instinct I had was perhaps this was something that was important to the previous homeowner,
right,
and it was a big selling point for them, and so it was important to them that it was conveyed in the listing sheet and maybe would help them in the sale of their home.
Right.
They paid they paid $517 for this very same house in 2010, so the price came down by about $30,000 over the course of the past 2 years. A couple instances we had this month that we have houses that had sold a few years prior, and I think every one of them sold for more the previous time.
Yeah.
And so, red hot real estate market, yes, but maybe not quite as red hot on some levels as it might have been in years past. But I digress. Next up on the list, we keep moving right up the chain, is 11 Glover Road, and this was a house also that was on a very big lot.
Yeah, and I think just this one is one house removed from the corner of Central Ave. So it's when you're on or near that busy street, I think it might take away a little bit of the value. This is a candidate for redevelopment. House needed some work. Mm-hmm. It's a huge lot, 25,000 square feet, but as you see, selling under 500,000.
And there was some wetlands back there as well, but a quiet street. I mean, close to Central, yeah, but still, it's on a street that's a nice quiet street. It's in the Elliott School District. 172 Damon Road is the next house on our list. What can you tell us about this one that sold for $550,000?
Another house that probably needed a little bit of work is definitely being marketed to a homeowner. The reason I can tell you that is that the seller went out of their way to refinish the hardwood floors, which is always nice, and I think it adds a lot to the sale or to the presentation of a home when you're putting it on the market. But one little tip that I noticed when they redid the floors, it happens every time. The guy doing it, he's going to bang up your baseboards a little bit. So make sure when you redo your floors that you do come in behind there with the painter or do it yourself and just touch up the baseboard, because I think it completes the total package.
Right, and really no point in redoing the floors if all of a sudden people's eyes are drawn to the baseboards that don't look good and they're all scuffed up. 245 Honeywell Street was a house that when it came on the market, I think jumped off the page a little bit because A, it was on a big lot that appeared to potentially be subdividable. B, it was a short sale, and C, it's a pretty big house. And so 750, it's kind of in that wheelhouse range, but odd that over the course of 8 days, it went under agreement and then sold for $200,000 less.
Right. I mean, the short sale, I mean, sort of the conventional rules go out the window. I mean, you never know what you're in for. It was listed for $750. While it was under agreement, the price was changed to $650, and then it ultimately sold for $550. So there's any number of reasons for that. A lot of it probably had to do with what the bank was willing to accept during the short sale process. We could do a whole show talking about the short sale process, but in the effort of saving time, we can move on.
Oh, we could also probably do a whole show trying to speculate on what was going on with that one listing. You don't ever see a price change after a house is under agreement, but a New Hampshire broker had that listing. It was a short sale, so kind of a different scenario than we're used to seeing, which partly explains why it sold for $200,000 less than what it was listed for over the course of 8 days.
Yep.
That was not.
But
the
it was
case.
on the market for 7 months. I'm sorry, it was under agreement for 7 months. It went under agreement after 8 days, but it didn't close until 7 months later. So there may have been some goings on with the price during that time.
I don't think there was any goings on with 119 Hoyden Street. This is a house that you and I both had the opportunity to take a peek at, and we both liked what we saw.
Yeah, I think we had the same reaction. Every time you see a ranch, your expectation is that it's going to be somewhat small. I mean, that's sort of the nature of it. We walked in here and we both went, oh wow! I mean, it opened right up. A nice open floor plan. It's every inch of 2,100 square feet. I thought it was well priced. It was a nice house, and maybe the fact that it's across from a cemetery. We've touched on that in previous shows. That might turn some people off, but I think this was a well priced house.
I don't know if being across from the cemetery hurt you as much as on this listing, because when you walked out the front door, the cemetery wasn't staring you in the face either. There was a little bit of separation. There was some shrubbery that was kind of blocking it a little bit. But yeah, a really open floor plan, deceptive. And the fact that it was such a big lot and there was just kind of trees behind it, it was a nice look in the backyard and a nice master suite as well. 41 Bird Street is a listing that was in the Broadmeadow School District. And this, fair to say that this house seemed to be like a tweener on the surface based on what it was listed for, that it could either be purchased by a builder or by a direct buyer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this house, is going to appeal to both, because especially at this price point. The one thing I noticed about it, and this is just again me maybe noticing things, there's only 6 pictures of it. So when you're putting a listing out, I mean, you want to show off everything there is to show off about the house, but maybe the seller was on the mindset that someone's going to come in and just redevelop this. So we're going to let the price and the location basically dictate how this sale goes.
Is there a rule of thumb you have for how many pictures is an adequate number of pictures for a listing? You said 6 wasn't enough.
Well,
is 8 enough?
I don't know that it's necessarily, is 6 enough, or is there a magic number? It's take pictures of the things you want people to see that will get them to the door. So if you only had the possibility of taking 6 pictures, then if that's all that there was to show off, then fine. Maybe it's 1. Maybe it's just putting a picture of the front of the house and giving you the address. And in this case, that might have gotten it done.
All right. Well, I'm starting to get excited. You know why?
Yes, I do.
We're about to introduce a new aspect, a new component to the show.
This is exciting.
It is. It is groundbreaking. It's a historical moment, potentially. And what we're introducing to the show is every month, Ryan and I will have our deal of the month. And Ryan's deal of the month is coming up on the horizon. And that deal of the month resides at 51 Alden Road.
Yes, and it's a deal of the month because I think the seller actually got the deal of the month this month.
So wait a minute, let me get this right. The first deal of the month is the seller getting the deal of the month.
That's right.
Okay,
because there's 2 players in here. There's a buyer and a seller, and
I couldn't agree more.
Sometimes the buyer gets the better deal. Sometimes the seller does. And here, I think in hindsight, the seller is going to come out on top here. This is a Cape on Alden, which is a really nice street. It's over by Olin College. Very, very quiet street. Nice part of town near Wellesley. The house was listed for $650 and it sold for $629. And the days on market is somewhat misleading because it was on the market for about 90 days or so as an entry-only listing at $650, and then it went to a Needham, or it went to an agent and sold very quickly at $629. And really, what struck me is that this house, I looked at it and said, my gosh, this house is mid-5s. I mean, it needed a lot of work. It doesn't have air conditioning. It's it's nothing about it that really jumped off the pages. Oh my God, this is going to nail the mid-6s. And I was very, very surprised at how quickly it went under agreement and for what ultimately it sold for. So I think the seller here, he did very well.
All right, so Ryan's deal of the month is in the books. Mine's coming up, but I'm not going to give out any secrets as to when. 207 Great Plain Ave, another house that you and I both had the opportunity to take a peek at, and this was a really nice house, done well, moving condition, didn't need a thing. I thought it was going to be priced a little bit higher than what it was, so I liked it at $649. Not my deal of the month, but I like this listing.
I think just that it was on Great Plain, and it's somewhat on the smaller side. I think that kept it out of the 7s.
This house has power lines running out in front of it. 57 Mary Chilton, which is next on the list, is not one of the rare streets in Needham where there are no power lines.
It's very dark there.
It's very dark there. No, there is power. It's actually underground.
Oh,
underground. So
that's misleading. I didn't know that.
There's power. Maybe there should have been a disclosure about
that.
that.
Well, I saw it during the day, so I wasn't sure.
You weren't aware. Okay, well, I'm glad we got that clarified. This house sold for $672. Spacious, some good 4 beds, 3.5 baths. Built in 1983, not really updated since. Any observations on this one before we move on?
No. I think the numbers speak for themselves.
All right, you think I covered it?
Yeah.
92 Washington Avenue is next up, and this is a house also that wasn't updated, but seemed to be a good value. You like this house?
I do. I mean, it's a good amount of square feet. It's a big lot. It's 11,000 plus square foot lot. You're right. It needed some updating. You do get a second refrigerator, which is really a bonus.
Yep.
But great location. I think this is probably a good deal, maybe even for the buyer.
That house listed by a friend of the show, Bob Downs.
That's true.
Next up, 170 Great Plain Avenue, and this is a house that had a sign in front of it for quite a long period of time, including when it sold in 2008 for $786. This time around, the house sold for $740. Any observations of this listing, Ryan?
I mean, 5 price reductions. I don't have any problem with the price reduction, but I think when you start getting into the point where you have 3 price reductions that total $2,000, it's just sort of.
Oh, is that right? 3 that totaled?
Well, they went from $799 to $795 over the course of 3 reductions.
Right.
So I don't know how effective that is. I think you're just trying to get back into the there's been a change to the listing and a minor price reduction. I don't know really if that does anything for you, other than try to keep your listing relevant and fresh. But I think ultimately, when we talk about the 8s being tricky all the time, and this house had 7s written all over it, and ultimately they got there.
I think the lesson learned is if you're going to have a price reduction, make the price reduction count.
Yeah, we'll see that later on.
Make it jump out, not just because it has the PCG next to the listing, but that it's a number that somebody says, wow, this thing's down by $20,000. Maybe it's a good buy at this point. Mm-hmm. 20 Pythias Circle is a house that did not have any price reductions. This was an entry only, which is to say it was essentially a for sale by owner.
Kind of.
FSBO, as some people might call it in the industry.
We don't talk much about FSBOs on this show, though.
No, we don't. So I'll move on. Listed for $779,900, sold for $760 on the market just 19 days.
Yep. I've got to say I was a little surprised at this number as well. I think the high to mid 7s was if you're the seller, again, I think you're pretty happy.
Yeah, mid 7s. I mean, under 2,000 square feet, anything that starts with a 7, generally speaking, there are some exceptions, but that's a pretty good number.
This isn't low 7s either. This is 760.
No. The fact that it had a renovated kitchen certainly helped.
Yep.
2-car attached underneath garage helps. Some updates, or is that a 1-car?
It's 2.
Okay. 1725 Great Plain Ave.
A lot of Great Plain Aves this month.
Yeah, there are. That's a good point. There were a lot last month, too.
Wow.
That's a big street.
That
has a lot to do with it.
That does matter.
This one jumped out at me as soon as I saw it. I guess probably because I live fairly close to it, but also because it seemed to be priced very well, and lo and behold, they got a bunch of offers right out of the gate. And I think it's because there were so many different things you could do with this listing. It was on a very big lot, so maybe subdividable, maybe not. There were some questions about that. But this was a type of listing who attracted a lot of different buyers, whether they be developers, people who wanted to live there, or people who wanted to do their own project. Seems to be the desire was there among the buying community.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like it got competitive too.
It did get very competitive. Yeah. And that's a way to do it sometimes. And I think the lesson learned there, and we've talked about this too, is underpricing your listing isn't always a bad thing, because it's not like you're going to be giving away your house. If the market decides that you've underpriced it, the market is going to speak, and they're going to do that in terms of getting multiple offers, as was the case with this one. And the result is you end up getting a sale that's significantly higher than what the house was listing for. And in this case, that number was $61,000 higher over asking. So I think you could argue that the bigger danger is overpricing your house.
Absolutely, without question.
Right.
Without question.
Speaking of which, and that wasn't even planned, but 67
Everybody get ready.
67 May Street, everybody's been waiting, and that's a deal of the month. That's my deal of the month. 67 May Street is a house that was on the market for quite some time, potentially, or I think time has proven that it was overpriced initially, but as a result, you had quite a few price reductions, and then finally, when it started to get to a place where it was priced at a good number, it had gotten stale, and there was an issue in an inspection with some knob and tube at this listing. And so I couldn't believe that this thing started to go to mid-9s, to low 9s, and then eventually it was priced at $899, which finally somebody appreciated the value of it. But this was a huge house, 6 beds, 3 baths, corner lot, in town. You had the garage right next to the house, but still, you had the yard. And whoever got this one, I tip my cap to you because you got the deal of the month.
Yeah, and there's some work still to be done in there, clearly. But when your basis is 900, and you've got, just down the road from that, you've got boom, 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 multiple $1 million+ homes, and so you go in there, spend a little bit of money, you got yourself a keeper.
The bones were great. Yeah. It was a good house.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, good for them. Good for you. 24 Tower Avenue is a house that is next up on our list. This house had no garage. So very rarely you see a house with no garage go for close to $1 million. But that was the case with this one, and we go back to the price reduction theme.
Yeah. We both liked what the owner did here. They put it on the market for a number that was probably a little bit more, especially like you mentioned, there wasn't a garage. And then, when the writing's on the wall, it's on the wall, and you got to react. And they reacted with a significant price reduction, about $70,000, and boom, sold.
All right, we're moving over to some new construction houses right now. For new construction for under $1 million, which doesn't happen all that much in Needham. In November, it happened actually twice, and the first house it happened at was 220 Honeywell Street, listed clearly at the right number, sold for that number 7 days in. A big house, but the developer bought in at this in mid-3s.
Right, and that's where you really, if you're going to sell out in the 9s, you really ought to be in the mid-3s, or else you're not going to make any money.
Yeah. And that's a good number to get. It was a good sized lot too. It was over 15,000 square feet for $350,000. And the next new construction, right after it, which sold for $6,000 more than the one on Honeywell, was on 101 May Street. This one sold for $995 on the surface. Would you rather live on Honeywell or would you rather live on May Street?
I'd prefer to be on May. I think I like the in-town location a little bit better. Honeywell's kind of a busy street too. The big difference between these two here, obviously, is the lot size.
It's a big difference.
May Street's only 7,900 square feet.
7,900. Honeywell was 18,000.
Right. So but I think the offset is the location, and I think the May is a pretty good deal too.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of good deals to be had on May Street, I guess.
Yeah. 517
South Street is close to Webster. That's the location on South Street. That one is, correct?
Yes, it is. And I saw this house a couple of times, and I think it has tremendous potential. The lot is gorgeous. It keeps going out the back. And the good thing about it is it's not all yours. So you have a nice big yard, and then you have big open space that's between you and the next properties, and it's all sort of, when you look out your window, it looks like it's all there, and it's very nicely landscaped and manicured. The house needed some updating, though. It's dated. It just needs a little bit of cosmetics.
All right. And that was on a, like you said, nice lot and a 3-car garage, which I'm a fan of. You don't like the 3-car garage as much as I do.
Who said I don't like 3-car garage?
I don't think you like them as much as I do.
I wouldn't force it into a lot that doesn't warrant it. This one, I think, you have plenty of room.
You can get away with it.
Yeah.
I like the 3-car garage, and I don't even have 3 cars. But I just liked having the option, I guess. 172 Valley Road is a new construction home, and you and I saw this on the same day. We also saw the next listing, so keep this one in mind. It sold for $1,225. Valley is close to what?
Well, according to the listing sheet, it's close to the golf course, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Right. Well, you're not going to put close to 128.
Right. We're right now close to the golf course. How about that?
Yeah. Anybody in Needham is arguably close to the golf course.
It's all relative.
Right. I wouldn't say it's walking distance to the golf course.
Yeah. Honestly, I was a little surprised at this number. I think that given what you were getting for 172 Valley, I think I would have bought Kenny.
Kenny, right. So Valley sold for $1,225. For $60,000 more, you could have had 37 Kenny Street. That sold for $1,285. So you thought Kenny was beyond $60,000 better.
I'll take my 60 grand and go to Kenny and wouldn't think twice about it.
I would too. And that had nothing to do with the natural fencing so much as just the overall you like the house better.
What's natural fencing? Hedges?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
I would imagine.
Oh, interesting. Well, I don't know if there was any fencing at 23 Savoy. Do you?
If it was, it wasn't natural.
And they didn't put it on the listing sheet.
No, they didn't.
But it is next on our list,
True.
so we should talk about it. This is not a new construction, but it was built in 2007 or sold in 2007.
One of those young houses that we see.
And once again, it sold for less than what it sold for previously.
Right.
Any other observations about this one?
Nice street.
Nice street. Savoy's a good location. You're seeing a lot of new construction on Savoy.
Yeah.
47 Wayne Road is
Near Cricket Field.
near Cricket Field. That would be Elliott, correct? This one sold for $1,297,142. I don't think we've ever seen that sales price. Do you?
I like that sales price.
Yeah, that's a unique one.
Yeah.
Anything else? What else do you see about this one?
It's a good lot. It's a good lot, and it's a nice little pocket of town. I like the Elliott School location is really becoming popular.
It is, and there's a lot of new construction. I feel like we've seen quite a few things on Wayne. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
4 Ware Road. We've also seen a few things on there as well.
I mean, nowhere else in Needham is the principle of conformity more evident than in this neighborhood. There's a lot of turnover. They had a lot of the same sort of one-story homes that are now being redeveloped into new construction, and it's a place, if you want to buy new construction and be in a pocket with other owners of similar homes, this is the place to do it.
18 Colgate, although it didn't come on at MLS until December 9th, it sold in November of 2012, November 5th, this one sold.
We would appreciate you to be a little bit more punctual with your updating of your MLS
Right,
listings.
especially if you want to be on the show. But this had a Wolf 6-burner gas range, Sub-Zero. You like the sounds of those words? Wolf, Sub-Zero, things like that?
Very aggressive, very aggressive. And what it didn't have when the developer bought it was sewer. So that led to a couple more dollars in the old budget.
Speaking of budgets, we go to the biggest seller of November, 44 Lindbergh Ave. And coincidentally, this one sold for $1.5 million. And just about a year ago, 32 Lindbergh, which is next door to it, sold for
$1.5 million.
$1.5 million. So when you're building a new construction house next door to another new construction house, you have set the bar. And in this case, it sold for the same exact number. Energy Star Home Certified. Does that do anything for you?
It does, especially when you're talking about houses that get into the 4,600 square foot range. When you have an energy efficient home, it's just going to cost you less to live in it.
Right, and that matters when you have somebody spending this amount of money and they're going to have a sizable mortgage payment, so anywhere they can kind of trim those costs,
That's
you
right.
think would mean a lot to them.
Yeah.
So that does it. 29 homes.
Wow, I'm exhausted.
I am too. Pretty tired, but that's a good November right there.
Not bad.
What do we think we have coming down the pike for December?
Well, we have 64 active single-family listings, so we could have 29 more sales to talk about next month.
Right, but that's down from 82.
Right.
So one would assume that it's going to be a quieter December.
But I think what you're going to see is a lot of sellers, especially long-time sellers that have been in their homes for a while, going to be pushing to have closings before the end of the month because of the uncertainty of cap gains next year.
That would have been reflected in November's sales.
Well, you could see a lot of December closings.
Right, early. Yeah, good point. Good point. So it'll be interesting to see how those stack up. And we'll be able to spend a little bit of time on December sales, but we're also going to be spending time on other things in the next month's show. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Let's keep finishing up the market snapshot. Under agreement, less homes than last month.
Again,
so
not
another
surprising.
sign that points to exactly. I mean, winter's here.
Yep.
So people are batting down the hatches a little bit. Average listing price is up, though.
It is.
And that's driven considerably up by that one listing it used to be on for $18 million on South Street. Now it's down to $15 million.
Yeah.
But that's still on.
Talk about a big price reduction.
Yeah, that's right. Through a $3 million price reduction. That means something.
Right.
And average days on market is 165 days. And average list price per square foot, $349. And we know, Ryan, that if you want to push your inventory through, $349 is not going to cut it.
Probably not.
It needs to be low threes.
That's right.
All right, so that does it for this month's episode. So I want to talk a little bit about next month's episode because you're not going to want to miss it. But first, I want to hand out that phone number. Ryan, that's your thing.
Yeah, it's 781-707-6564.
And so if anybody wants to call in, they can also email to rob.ryan.needham@gmail.com. But next month's show is going to be our end of the year spectacular. You're not going to want to miss that show because we're going to stack up all of 2012's data in years past for single families, for condos, for multis, something we haven't done yet. So that's going to be a fun and exciting show.
And can we pack that into a half an hour?
We're going to try.
Oh,
we're going
boy.
to talk fast.
Yeah.
But now, we'll worry about that then. Now it's time to say goodbye.
Happy holidays, everyone, and happy birthday, Rob Ticktin.
Thank you. I'm going to go check my Facebook happy birthdays right now. Goodbye, Needham.
Good night.